So to get results like this, this, and that, we actually didn't do nothing different to get results like this, this, and that. Today, I will show you guys exactly the content creation process that we have used for ranking #1 on Google and to also get mentioned in ChatGPT, Perplexity, Cloud, whatever LLMs, you name it. Really quick before I get into the sauce, who is this dude up here with the microphone that couldn't get his computer working? My name is George. I'm the co-founder of RankUp. We're building SEO AI agents. I actually had an SEO agency myself before that did specifically content marketing, so I'm a content-focused SEO professional. I made money for different kinds of businesses, local, e-com, agency, SaaS. I've done SEO in Estonian, Finnish, and English, and I've collaborated with hundreds of experts regarding, I've done interviews with them, learning about the SEO industry. I've actually strategized, worked together on different individual website projects, etc. So I've been around, and some of them you can see also up here. But now, regarding content creation, then to make it, because SEO is fairly difficult, would we agree? Who would say SEO is technical? Difficult technical? Raise their hand, please. Okay, so fair enough. To make it really simple, I've put it into 3 phases. So first, we'll lay out the foundation of actually creating a content page that ranks in both Google and ChatGPT. Before I actually write a single word that eventually becomes a content piece, I start by understanding, okay, what does the searcher or slash reader, or however you call them, what do they actually want to know? So I've identified that there's usually 3 types of things that they are looking for. Either they want to know something, some sort of information, they need to find something, a location perhaps, or they want to buy something, e-commerce product, SaaS product, whatever it is. Once we understand what are they actually looking for, then I move on to like, all right, so what kind of information do I need to provide in order to meet this need, right? They have a need, they need to buy something, they need to know something. What kind of information do I have to provide to meet it? Once I understand that basis, let's go into a bit more detail regarding the information that we actually have to provide within the content piece. So this could be said also like a brainstorming step, but it's not just more maybe constructive brainstorming. So I start usually with identifying, okay, what are the different questions, subtopics that I have to cover in order to meet the need, right? In order for them to get the information they were looking for or find the location or buy the product. And by the way, how you can get these subtopics is purely from your keyword research, brainstorming with ChatGPT itself, just, I don't know, if you have a teammate or like it's not really that much about, you have to really think looking at it from the searcher's angle, what do they want to know? Then you can go a bit more specific. So, all right, what are the exact facts? Or if it's like an opinion experience-based content that they're looking for, what are they looking to get opinions on? Or what are they looking to hear about someone else's experience, perhaps? Now, regarding the product service side of things, here, it's really, really important to understand, all right, so what are the different details about a product or service are they looking for? And that's really important because if they cannot get the necessary details, then they'll probably just be uncertain and kind of, okay, I didn't really get all the information I needed, so they're not going to buy either way. There's a very high likelihood of that. The very simple idea with keyword variations is to maximize your visibility, because someone can search the core term that you're trying to rank for a bit differently. I wouldn't also say anything is more important here out of all of them. However, especially nowadays, what we've seen that has gotten, like we've written one content piece, done the exact same stuff to get into Google and ChatGPT, right? And this is one of the key reasons. How will you stand out? What's the unique value you will provide within your content piece? Is it a unique, like we talked before, right? Is it a unique opinion or experience? Or is it some sort of unique fact that your competitors haven't found? Once you've kind of identified these and done this kind of brainstorming round, then let's actually start creating the structure. Now, the structure, how I usually build out the structure is I start thinking, what is the next topic or question that the searcher or slash reader, right, already, what do they have in their mind that they want to, because that creates this super optimal flow when they're reading it, and the reader experience also goes through the roof. And that keeps them on the page, and the longer they stay on the page, the more valuable Google sees your content piece as. This usually creates the core structure. And a good rule I like to follow is that the most important information I try to keep in the top 30% of the content piece. And that's roughly, right? That's why I put that there. It's like a good guardrail, but it's not that necessary, in my opinion. However, like, yeah, the key idea here is to try to put all of that. So what I mean by most important is, what is the reason they came even on your content piece? What are they looking to know, find, or buy? If they're looking for perhaps a skincare product, and then you talk about the skincare product at the end of your content piece, right? Then basically the information, everything that is above, they didn't care about that as much. They first wanted to know or see the product, that whatever they're searching for. So that's what I mean by most important information. And then FAQs. So FAQs are a great way to also maximize visibility, because in the SERPs, there's a thing called people also ask section. How many guys have noticed that? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, so that's essentially like questions, right? That you can click on, and then you'll get like a quick answer, and Google has pulled that from multiple different content pieces within the SERP. And here's the same thing. Okay, think what's the first question they have after they read the blog? That is kind of like a quick question you can answer. It's not a part of the core topics you want to cover. All right, well, now we have the content structure. So what topics we're gonna cover. Before I actually get to writing the draft, below each heading, this can be a question or like we talked about before, right? I actually already address or answer the question straight up. These direct answers, so what you see right below the heading, have been the key for getting us ranking also on both search engines and LLMs. So this is especially for LLMs nowadays. What I would like to point out with the same 2 to 3 word chunk is, if you can see in the title, the title is, what is an app bug report? The 2 to 3 word chunk that I'm talking about is an app bug report. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what the 2 to 3 words I used from the heading I used in my direct answer? Why I did it like that is to make sure that Google, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whoever we're talking about, has maximum confidence that I'm actually addressing whatever they are looking for. What I want to point out here is that it should be, your direct answer should be as concise as possible. However, you shouldn't sacrifice providing less information for conciseness, right? So you still want to provide all the information necessary there, while keeping it as concise as possible. So that's ultimately what I mean by this. And okay, so now we have the direct answers, right? You can go paragraph by paragraph if you want to. You can do like the direct answers below each heading and then get to the key talking points, but that's really up to you, whatever is comfortable. Now, okay, below the direct answers, we have the key talking points. So there, very simple idea. You lay out what are the specifics, what is the more information you're providing within that section. Because the direct answer answers like the main thing, right, they're looking for. However, those extra details will provide extra context, or could provide like, depending on what it is, for example, a skincare product. I like to use that as an example. For what use case would the person use the skincare product for? So that's what I mean by expanding on the content. It helps you organize where to talk about what, and then helps you actually helps you avoid writing content that is unnecessary. And because we know we don't want to waste time writing content. Writing content takes time. It's a creative process, and you don't want to waste time on writing paragraphs and paragraphs that you're not going to use. All right, now we have the core foundation laid out. Only then we actually start now writing the draft. And as I mentioned before, content creation is a creative activity, right? How to keep people engaged is its own craft. However, there are best practices which I like to use when creating content. I've tested and seen that help keep a person reading. So first of all, and this is also especially important nowadays for ranking in ChatGPT and these LLMs, it's using your own voice, or your writer using their own voice. And why is that important? It's because in one of Google's recent patents, It was published somewhere in December 2024. And patents, disclaimer, doesn't mean, right, that they are actually implementing it yet. But still, I mean, they did the patent for a reason. And they mentioned there that they will most likely start, because there's a whole industry about detecting AI content, right? They will most likely start putting all the pieces they identified as AI content into like a group, and thus all the ones that have provided, for example, these authorship, I think that's how it's pronounced, authorship signals. So using their own way of communicating ideas or experiences will just rise to the top purely because they actually use their own voice and didn't just AI generate some blob and blog, good to go, right? So that's why I highly recommend it. Now, before I got into content creation, I had no clue that content and burritos have a lot in common. Actually, they do. So the theory of a burrito, right, is that when you take something out, then it collapses, right? That's the theory of a good burrito. The same is with content. If you can take a sentence out, why is it there? Max 4 lines at a time. This is very simple. If once you're reading the content, right, there's, for example, in phone, that's a different case. So that's why I mentioned desktop here. But yeah, essentially just try to have 4 lines at a time, the paragraphs, because otherwise they might get a bit too long and hard to read. Tables, very simple here as well. I like to use for comparisons, not just inserting them into the content just to make it more engaging, right? Infographics, I like to use for processes, especially complex processes, and also for checklists, something they can, save and use it for later or share with somebody. And then images, a lot of people like to use images for just to put into the content, just to make it a bit more interesting. However, I don't think that's the best use case because that means your content is flawed from the beginning, like your written content. So I like to use it for some uncommon thing or action, uncommon thing as in, I don't know, electrical blanket, right? How many have heard about an electrical blanket? Okay, that's okay. Well, it's good you know about it. And then, for example, some action, right? How many do you know about lacrosse, the sport lacrosse? Okay, you know. All right. Well, nobody basically besides you. And then, so that's like the same purpose there. And then to intensify emotion. So you can use it in CTAs, for example, when you're breaking down the problem you're solving for your target audience. Then, okay, like adding like a picture visualization of their current state, of the current problem they're facing. And now the final phase of creating a well-ranking page. So I like to use this optimization checklist, and this is how to say, these are optimization categories, not necessarily like very, very detailed, like specific checklist items, because checklists are relative for each content piece. If you're using the same, that's a lot of the problem. A lot of people use it to use the same checklist for creating all kinds of content pieces, right? Ecom product page, SaaS comparisons, listicle, or whatever. So I like to put it into categories, and these categories will also depend on the content piece you're creating. So making sure your SEO best practices are covered. So this is a checklist I've usually gotten from experience. If you want more on these each checklist item, then yeah, I mean, this one is purely based on experience. So seeing what works, putting it down as a checklist item will really help you as you create SEO content. Subtopics, so maybe is there any other subtopics that you can cover that could help fulfill the searcher's need completely, because that's the ultimate goal here, right? Unique angles, I mean, speaks for itself, what kind of unique opinions or experience you can provide to the reader. Is there like anything maybe missing or anything you could add? Internal links, so since it's very important for a site to be connected, right, in order to build authority with both GPT, Google, other search engines, then finding ways on how you can how you can link this content piece with other relevant content pieces within your site. AI overviews, right? And this is very simple, actually. There's nothing that complex about this. Basically, you can just reverse engineer if you have an AI overview, of course, within the SERP for the keyword you're trying to rank for. And then essentially like, okay, what kind of topic got into that AI overview? And then seeing what kind of answer got into that and potentially including it in your own, or seeing how that answer was written and then writing it yourself similarly, or what kind of facts were written there. Because of course, writing it the same for authorship signals is not the best idea, right? So seeing what kind of fact information was provided there. And then SERP features, what kind of, I guess, like things you can take from the SERP. For example, the people also ask section, you can take the questions there and use those questions in your FAQ section. A couple last things, read through your content, see like, okay, is there anything maybe, like read it also with as loud of a voice as you can to see if there's any like weird sentences or paragraphs. And this is with headings, direct answers, and core content. And then finally, very brief steps, write the meta description, make sure external links open in a new tab, and submit it to GSC for indexing. And yeah, if you guys want the full process that I have, I put it into a very condensed and like checklist format.